Welcome to the BRICS News. Today, we'll explain the BRICS 2024 Summit. The 2024 BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia has transformed global geopolitics. In this in-depth analysis, we explore how the expansion of BRICS, with new members like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, Iran, and Ethiopia, is reshaping the global balance of power. This monumental summit highlights BRICS' commitment to representing the global South, reducing Western influence, and challenging the dominance of the US dollar. Discover how BRICS' economic strategies, including de-dollarization and a new payment system, are set to change the global financial landscape. We delve into the key themes of the summit, including anti-Western sentiment, multilateralism, and the future role of BRICS as a leader of developing nations. Watch the full breakdown for detailed insights into BRICS expansion and its impact on global politics, the future of de-dollarization and economic independence, Russia's role in strengthening BRICS amidst Western sanctions, and how BRICS unifies the global South against Western dominance. Stay informed on how BRICS is leading the way toward a multipolar world and challenging Western hegemony. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more global political analysis and updates on BRICS and world economic trends. This description uses targeted keywords such as BRICS 2024, de-dollarization, and Global South to rank high on search engines, ensuring the video is found by those interested in global politics, economics, and geopolitical developments. The hashtags further enhance visibility across related searches. The 2024 BRICS Summit, a monumental gathering, shaping global geopolitics. The 2024 BRICS Summit, held from October 22nd to 24th in Kazan, Russia, stands as one of the most consequential gatherings in recent global history. This summit marked a defining moment for BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, as the group welcomed new members, doubling its size and expanding its geopolitical influence. With the inclusion of Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Iran, and Ethiopia, BRICS transformed from a regional association of major developing countries to a more formidable global force. This enlargement is not just a testament to BRICS's growing clout, but a signal of its ambition to reshape global power dynamics, positioning itself as a direct counter to the perceived exploitative and declining Western powers such as the US, NATO, and the European Union. BRICS expansion, signaling a new era in global politics. The decision to expand BRICS membership underscores the bloc's growing appeal to nations seeking an alternative to Western-dominated institutions like the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. Traditionally dominated by the US and its allies, these institutions have long been criticized for enforcing economic policies that perpetuate inequality and debt dependency, particularly in the global South. BRICS's enlargement, therefore, sends a clear message: a new world order is emerging, one that seeks to reduce dependency on the West and create a multipolar world where power is more equitably distributed. The inclusion of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, Iran, and Ethiopia is particularly significant. These countries, representing critical economic and strategic regions such as the Middle East and Africa, bring to the table vast resources, political clout, and growing economies. For instance, Saudi Arabia and the UAE contribute immense oil wealth and have increasing geopolitical influence, particularly in energy markets. Egypt holds a key geopolitical position, serving as a gateway between Africa and the Middle East. Iran represents a critical player in the energy and geopolitical sectors, especially in a region where tensions with the West are high. Ethiopia, as one of Africa's fastest-growing economies, further solidifies BRICS's connection to the African continent. This new, larger BRICS bloc, therefore, represents a coalition not only of the major emerging economies, but also of nations seeking greater sovereignty from Western economic and political systems. With this expanded membership, BRICS is positioning itself as the primary advocate for the global South. BRICS as the voice of the global South. BRICS has always been about more than just economics. From its inception, the bloc sought to represent the interests of the global South. Countries across Latin America, Africa, Asia, and parts of the Middle East that have historically been marginalized in global governance. The expansion to include Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, Iran, and Ethiopia marks a deeper commitment to this cause. By including these new members, BRICS is signaling that it is ready to lead the global South in pushing back against the traditional dominance of Western powers. The message is clear. BRICS seeks to be the representative of a more inclusive, equitable global order, where emerging and developing economies are no longer subject to the economic and political dictates of the West. Strengthening regional influence. The expansion strengthens BRICS' influence across key regions like the Middle East and Africa, regions that have been increasingly asserting their autonomy from Western interventionist policies. Enhancing economic diversification. With economies that range from oil-rich Gulf states to agricultural powerhouses in Africa, BRICS' economic base is becoming more diverse. This diversity gives the bloc more leverage in shaping global trade, finance, and energy policies, reducing reliance on Western-dominated systems. Global South solidarity. BRICS' mission to champion the rights and aspirations of developing nations, especially in light of the exploitative practices of Western colonialism and economic dominance, has now gained more traction. Anti-Western sentiment central theme of the summit. A significant theme throughout the summit was the criticism of the West. Leaders of BRICS nations openly lambasted the economic and political practices of the United States and European powers, framing these countries as historical and current exploiters of the global South. The critique was rooted in several key issues. First, economic exploitation and colonialism. The leaders underscored how Western colonialism and its legacy have left deep scars on developing nations, many of which continue to grapple with poverty and underdevelopment. Second, neoliberal policies and debt traps. Western-dominated financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank were criticized for imposing neoliberal economic policies, which often come with stringent conditions. These policies, such as structural adjustment programs, have been accused of exacerbating inequalities, causing social unrest, and keeping nations in perpetual cycles of debt. Third, marginalization in global governance. The summit also highlighted the long-standing frustration that many countries feel about their marginalization in institutions like the United Nations, IMF, and World Bank, where the global North still holds disproportionate power. In this context, the BRICS summit wasn't just about economic discussions. It was a forum for airing broader grievances about global inequities and injustices that have long been perpetuated by Western-led systems. Russia's role and geopolitical interests. The 2024 summit held particular significance for Russia. As the host, Russia used the event to showcase its leadership in the emerging multipolar world. Since its invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Russia has faced escalating sanctions from the United States and its allies, resulting in significant economic and diplomatic isolation. Hosting the BRICS summit was, therefore, an opportunity for Russia to reassert its relevance on the global stage. Strengthening alternative alliances. For Russia, BRICS is more than just an economic bloc. It's a critical platform for building alternative alliances, especially as its relations with the West deteriorate. By expanding BRICS to include non-Western powers like Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Egypt, Russia is fostering stronger partnerships with nations that either share its disdain for Western hegemony or are at least willing to challenge it. De-Dollarization, a strategic priority. One of Russia's key objectives is to weaken the global dominance of the United States dollar. The summit in Kazan provided a stage for President Vladimir Putin, who attended virtually due to international travel restrictions, to champion the cause of de-dollarization. For Russia, this is not just about economic strategy, it's about geopolitical survival. with Western sanctions cutting Russia off from many global financial systems, creating alternatives to the dollar-dominated SWIFT payment system is essential. BRICS, alternative to SWIFT. The bloc is continuing its efforts to develop a payment system that allows member countries to trade in national currencies. This is part of a broader de-dollarization strategy which aims to reduce the dependence on the United States dollar in international trade and finance. New Development Bank, NDB. Another central pillar of BRICS strategy is the New Development Bank, NDB, which seeks to provide financing for infrastructure and development projects without the political conditions often attached to loans from Western financial institutions. This makes it particularly attractive to countries in the Global South, which have long sought alternative funding mechanisms. Russia's engagement with the Global South. Russia's engagement with BRICS, and particularly its focus on building ties with countries in Africa and the Middle East, represents a significant geopolitical shift. With Western influence waning in these regions, Russia sees BRICS as a vehicle for expanding its influence and building partnerships with countries that have become disillusioned with the West. Economic cooperation and de-dollarization. At the heart of BRICS' long-term strategy is its effort to reduce reliance on Western financial institutions and the United States dollar. The summit in Kazan made clear that BRICS is committed to creating alternative financial systems that allow its members, and potentially other countries in the Global South, to trade and invest without being subjected to the dominance of the United States and its allies. Development of a BRICS currency. One of the most ambitious proposals to emerge from the summit was the idea of creating a BRICS currency. While still in its early stages, the currency would be designed to facilitate trade and investment among member countries without using the United States dollar. This proposal represents a direct challenge to United States financial dominance and underscores the bloc's broader goal of de-dollarization. BRICS New Development Bank, a cornerstone of economic cooperation. The BRICS New Development Bank, NDB, continues to be a cornerstone of the bloc's economic cooperation. The NDB, headquartered in Shanghai, is designed to provide financing for infrastructure and development projects across the Global South. Unlike the IMF and World Bank, which often attach strict political and economic conditions to their loans, the NDB offers a more flexible approach that aligns with the needs and priorities of developing nations. Infrastructure and development financing. One of the NDB's primary goals is to address the massive infrastructure gap in developing countries. By financing roads, bridges, ports, and other critical projects, the NDB aims to boost economic growth in regions that have historically been neglected by Western financial institutions. Sustainable development and technology investment. The Kazan summit also emphasized the importance of investing in sectors like digital technology, artificial intelligence, and renewable energy. By focusing on these areas, BRICS is positioning itself at the forefront of the technological and sustainable development necessary to bridge the gap between the global North and South. BRICS as a unifying force for the Global South. At its core, BRICS is becoming the collective voice of the Global South. The bloc's efforts to champion multilateralism, equitable development, and non-interventionism resonate deeply with countries that have been sidelined or undermined by Western policies. Many of these nations have suffered from the impacts of economic imperialism, structural adjustment programs, and political intervention by Western powers. BRICS, with its expanding membership and influence, is increasingly seen as a viable alternative to Western-dominated institutions. Its growing ability to act as a unifying force for the Global South is evident in several key areas. Multilateralism and equitable development. One of BRICS's main pillars is its commitment to multilateralism. The bloc emphasizes that global governance should not be dictated by a handful of powerful countries, but should reflect the interests of a wider spectrum of nations, especially those from the Global South. This is a stark contrast to the often unilateral approaches taken by Western powers, particularly the United States, in international relations. inclusive global governance. The summit in Kazan highlighted BRICS' commitment to reforming global governance institutions like the United Nations, the IMF, and the World Bank. The bloc argues that these institutions, which were established in the post-World War II era, no longer reflect the realities of the 21st century, where developing nations are playing an increasingly important role in the global economy and politics. Equitable economic development. BRICS aims to create a more equitable global economy by addressing the structural inequalities that have historically favored developed nations. By promoting policies that encourage fair trade, investment in infrastructure, and sustainable development, BRICS seeks to bridge the gap between rich and poor nations. Non-interventionism and sovereignty. Another core principle that sets BRICS apart from Western-led institutions is its strong stance on non-interventionism. BRICS nations, many of which have experienced Western military or political intervention, are united in their belief that countries should have the right to determine their own political and economic systems without external interference. Support for sovereignty. The inclusion of countries like Iran and Ethiopia, which have faced significant external pressures from the West, further solidifies BRICS' stance on non-interventionism. Iran, for instance, has long been subjected to Western sanctions, and its membership in BRICS offers it a platform to resist these pressures and build stronger economic ties with other non-Western countries. Diplomatic autonomy. BRICS provides a diplomatic counterweight to Western influence, allowing member states to pursue their own foreign policies without being beholden to Western powers. This has particular resonance for countries like South Africa, India, and Brazil, which have sought to maintain independent foreign policies that are not aligned with the West's geopolitical agendas, infrastructure, and sustainable development. A major focus of the Kazan summit was the need to accelerate infrastructure development in the global south. Many developing nations continue to face significant infrastructure deficits, which hamper economic growth and social progress. BRICS, through the NDB and other initiatives, is seeking to fill this gap by providing financing for critical infrastructure projects. Bridging the infrastructure gap. The NDB has already financed several large-scale projects, including transportation networks, energy facilities, and water management systems in member countries. These projects are designed not only to improve economic productivity, but also to enhance the quality of life for people in developing nations. Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. In line with the United Nations SDGs, BRICS is prioritizing projects that promote sustainability. The bloc has placed a strong emphasis on renewable energy, clean technology, and climate resilience as part of its broader development strategy. This is particularly important for countries like Brazil and South Africa, which are both major players in the global efforts to combat climate change. Technology and digital innovation. As the world becomes increasingly digital, BRICS recognizes the importance of technological development as a key driver of future economic growth. The summit underscored the need for member countries to collaborate on digital technologies, artificial intelligence or AI, and the development of smart infrastructure. Digital technology cooperation. The BRICS bloc is exploring opportunities for collaboration in areas such as e-commerce, digital banking, and fintech, all of which are critical for fostering economic growth in the 21st century. By investing in digital infrastructure, BRICS aims to help member countries leapfrog traditional development models and position themselves as leaders in the global digital economy. Artificial intelligence and innovation. The summit also emphasized the importance of AI and technological innovation. China, as a leader in AI development, is spearheading efforts within BRICS to build an ecosystem that fosters research, development, and the implementation of AI technologies across member states. This collaboration is expected to generate new economic opportunities and improve competitiveness in global markets. Technology transfer and capacity building. Another key area of focus is technology transfer. Developing nations have often been left behind in the global technology race. But BRICS seeks to rectify this by facilitating the transfer of advanced technologies from more developed member countries to those that are still building their technological capacities. This is particularly critical for sectors like agriculture, healthcare, and manufacturing, where technology can dramatically improve productivity and outcomes. Critique of Western hegemony and the diminishing power of the West. Throughout the summit, there was a strong narrative that the West, particularly the United States, NATO, and the European Union, is in decline. This critique, which has long been a staple of BRICS discourse, was even more pronounced in Kazan as the bloc expanded its membership and gained more influence. Western exploitation and colonial legacy. The Kazan summit echoed the long-standing critiques of Western exploitation, particularly in relation to the colonial legacy that continues to impact many countries in the global south. BRICS leaders argued that Western powers, through both historical colonization and contemporary economic policies, have systematically exploited developing nations for their own benefit. Post-colonial inequalities. Many BRICS members, including India and South Africa, emphasized the need to address the lingering inequalities created by Western colonialism. These nations stressed that their continued underdevelopment is, in part, a consequence of the exploitative practices of colonial powers that stripped their countries of resources while imposing systems of governance and economic structures designed to benefit the West. Economic dominance and neoliberal policies. The summit also criticized the neoliberal economic policies promoted by Western institutions, which BRICS leaders argue have perpetuated cycles of debt and dependency in the global south. These policies, often implemented through IMF and World Bank loans, have imposed austerity measures and structural reforms that have limited the ability of countries to invest in social programs, infrastructure, and economic diversification. Western sanctions and global conflicts. The United States and its allies were also critiqued for their role in global conflicts and the use of sanctions as a tool of economic warfare. For many BRICS members, sanctions represent a form of coercion that disproportionately harms ordinary citizens and destabilizes economies. Impact of sanctions on Russia and Iran. Russia, which has faced increasing sanctions from the West since its invasion of Ukraine, used the summit to denounce these measures as ineffective and harmful to global stability. Similarly, Iran, which has been under severe United States sanctions for years, emphasized the need for countries to develop alternative trade and financial systems that can operate independently of Western influence. Calls for a multipolar world. The Kazan summit reinforced the call for a multipolar world, where no single power or group of powers, namely the United States and its allies, can dominate global affairs. BRICS leaders argued that the United States-led order is no longer viable and that a more balanced global system where emerging powers have an equal say in decision-making is necessary for peace and stability. The decline of the European Union and NATO. The European Union, or EU, and NATO also came under criticism during the summit. BRICS leaders pointed to the economic stagnation and political fragmentation within the EU as evidence of the West's diminishing power. Moreover, NATO's role in conflicts around the world, particularly its interventions in the Middle East and Eastern Europe, was heavily criticized. EU's internal challenges. The EU's economic woes, exacerbated by political divisions over issues like immigration, energy, and security, were highlighted as signs of the West's inability to adapt to the changing global landscape. BRICS leaders noted that as Europe grapples with internal challenges, its ability to exert influence on global affairs is waning. NATO's role in global conflicts. NATO's involvement in conflicts, particularly the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya, was criticized for contributing to instability in these regions. BRICS members called for an end to Western military interventions, arguing that such actions have only exacerbated humanitarian crises and economic devastation in the affected countries. Future prospects. a new multipolar era. The 2024 BRICS summit in Kazan marked a significant step forward for the bloc. Its expansion to include new members and its renewed commitment to de-dollarization, multilateralism, and sustainable development highlight BRICS' ambitions to lead the world toward a new multipolar era. The summit demonstrated that, while the West continues to grapple with its own internal challenges and waning global influence, BRICS is increasingly seen as a powerful counterbalance, offering a viable alternative for the global South. In the coming years, BRICS' success will depend on its ability to overcome internal differences and present a cohesive front on major global issues such as economic inequality, climate change, and geopolitical stability. If it can maintain this unity, BRICS is well positioned to play a pivotal role in shaping a more equitable and multipolar world order, one that challenges the historical dominance of the West and reflects the aspirations of a more diverse and interconnected global community. Conclusion. A defining moment in global history. The 2024 BRICS summit in Kazan will likely be remembered as a turning point in global geopolitics. It has crystallized the divide between an exploitative, declining West and a rising global South, united under the BRICS banner. By expanding its membership and emphasizing economic independence, multilateralism, and solidarity among developing nations, BRICS is not only reshaping the global economic and political landscape, but also challenging the very foundations of Western dominance. As this bloc continues to assert its influence, the world stands on the cusp of a new, multipolar era, one in which the global South plays an increasingly central role in global decision-making, and the dominance of the West is further diminished.